Hey friends, in this episode I'm going to talk about the sewing terms that I use most often in my home decor sewing tutorials. I've divided the sewing terms into 3 categories: fabric, stitches, and techniques. So let's get started. Our first sewing terms category is fabric. The right side is the pretty side of the fabric. On most fabrics, it's easy to tell which is the right side and which is the wrong side. Though on some fabrics, both sides might look the same. When you lay 2 pieces of fabric together with the pretty sides on the inside, that's called right sides together. When you sew the 2 fabrics together, the seam will be on the wrong side, and the right side will look nice and finished. A directional fabric has a clear up or down pattern to it. Like this cotton plant fabric, you would want the cotton balls to be on top and the stems going down. It's important when you're using a directional fabric that you lay it out properly when you cut out your projects. The selvages are the raw edges on either side of your fabric. You'll want to cut these edges off and not use them for your sewing project. The cut edge is the edge cut by the factory or at the fabric store when you bought your fabric. The straight of grain runs parallel with the selvage. The cross grain runs parallel to the cut edge of the fabric. The bias of the fabric is found at a 45-degree angle from the grain of the fabric. The bias of the fabric is stretchier than the straight of grain or the cross grain. Our second sewing terms category is stitches. To baste is to stitch a long stitch either by machine or by hand, and it's used to hold 2 pieces of fabric together. You can also sew 2 lines of a baste stitch to gather fabric. A seam is formed when 2 pieces of fabric are sewn together. The seam allowance is the fabric between the stitch line of a seam and the edge of the fabric. Some common seam allowance sizes are 1/2 inch for home decor projects, 1/4 inch for quilt making projects, and most dressmaking patterns have a 5/8 inch seam allowance. A backstitch is done at the beginning and the end of a seam. It helps to secure the stitches so they won't come undone. I like to sew forward a few stitches, reverse, and then forward again. A zigzag stitch is used most often to keep fabric from fraying. It's also used to create buttonholes. You can serge and edge a seam with a serger, and this helps to keep fabric from fraying. A top stitch is a finishing stitch for a seam. It can be 1 or 2 rows of stitching. The third sewing terms category is techniques. You can finger press a seam open using your fingers and pressure. I use this method when I'm sewing strips of fabric together for cording. To keep fabric from fraying, you can use pinking shears, a zigzag stitch, or a serger to finish seams. Cording is a narrow strip of fabric wrapped and sewn around a cord. I use it most often around pillow covers. It can also be known as piping or welt. Clipping is making small cuts perpendicular to the edge of the fabric so that the seam will lie flat when it's turned right side out. I use this method a lot when I'm sewing cording to a pillow cover, and I want to make sure the cording lies flat when it goes around the corner. Notching is cutting out a piece or pieces of fabric in the seam allowance to reduce bulk in a sewing project. I notch the corners of pillow covers before turning them right side out to reduce the bulk in the corners. Turning right side out literally means turning your sewing project so that the right side of the fabric is out and the wrong side of the fabric and the unfinished seams are on the inside. To gather is to make 1 piece of fabric shorter to fit a second piece of fabric. I gather fabric to make ruffles for pillows or for bed skirts. Pleating is another way to make a large piece of fabric fit a smaller piece. The fabric is folded instead of gathered. A knife pleat ruffle can add a nice touch to pillows and many other sewing projects. Let me know down in the comments if you have other sewing terms that you would add to this list. Happy sewing!